Hello and welcome. I am Kaylin Goebel and I am a Program Development Specialist here for OneOp. I will be moderating today's session and am happy to welcome you all to this webinar on community, healthy living, and food security programs. If you are joining us for the first time, I'd like to give you a brief tour of our webinar platform so you can find your way around. Hopefully, you are currently able to view the slides we're sharing. If you are unable to see them or having any other technical difficulties, please email us at contact@oneop.org for tech support. We hope you will join us in the chat today for conversations and questions. We have some great questions sprinkled throughout today's session. To embed the chat pod so you don't miss any links or conversations, simply place your cursor over the shared slides. You should then see a toolbar pop up across the bottom of your screen. From there, just click the chat bubble icon. When typing questions or comments, please make sure that you select everyone from the response options drop-down menu so everyone attending today can view your comments and your commentary in the chat pod. Slides and resources are available for download on the webinar event page, and I will be covering continuing education information at the end of today's webinar, so please stay tuned until the very end if you're obtaining CE credits or wish to receive a certificate of attendance for today. And finally, closed captioning is available for this webinar. You can turn on the subtitles via the Zoom toolbar as well along the bottom of the screen. We thank you for joining us today, and we know that among our nation's active duty service members and their families, almost 26% are food insecure. OneOp's 2023 Food Security in Focus series has continued our partnership with the Department of Defense and the U.S. Department of Agriculture to expand the readiness, knowledge, and networks of professionals supporting military families and addressing food security among military families. This year's Military Family Readiness Academy has also focused on mobilizing family service professionals at federal, state, and local levels to focus on expanding food security for our military family populations. You can learn more about both the MFRA, the Military Families and Food Security, a Call to Action, as well as our Food Security and Focus series and the professional development opportunities all included within that on our website. As part of the Food Security in Focus programming, we are presenting a brief video on using the two-question food insecurity screening assessment. These questions are intended to identify at-risk service members and families so that they may be connected to programs that can help.
Begin engaging in conversation and assessing a service member's current food security, recognize that food insecurity can occur whenever there is stress on resources in a household, time or money. The key is to start the conversation, perhaps at a morning stand-up, during a feedback session, or any time you may meet with your service members. The USDA defines food security for a household as the means to access by all members at all times to enough food for an active, healthy life. Food insecurity is defined as the limited or uncertain availability of nutritionally adequate and safe foods, or limited or uncertain ability to acquire acceptable foods in socially acceptable ways. Food insecurity may not always be visible, and asking families about food security may feel intrusive, but it is important to identify families who are food insecure or at risk for becoming food insecure so they may be connected to services. When meeting with families, you might say, the issue of not having enough food or the type of food you need to do your mission is a real concern. There are two proven questions to help understand if you are dealing with food insecurity. I would like to ask them now. If the answer to either question is yes, I want to get you connected to resources that can help, depending on your situation. Please know that food insecurity is just as common for single service members as for married service members. To screen for food insecurity, ask if the following two statements are often true, sometimes true, or never true. Within the past 12 months, we worried whether our food would run out before we got money to buy more. Within the past 12 months, the food we bought just didn't last and we didn't have money to get more. A response to either question of often true or sometimes true can indicate potential food insecurity. It is important to understand why the potential exists in order to connect the service member with appropriate resources. You could say, I have some resources I want to share with you that can help get you the support you need. To find resources, please visit militaryonesource.mil and find the Economic Toolkit for Service Providers. Scroll down and click on the ACT button to download a PDF of food security resources and programs. If the service member gives a response of never true, you may say that food may become an issue in the future, especially during a move or other transitions. Please reach out or call Military OneSource if you need support. If the service member or family is on an installation, you can also suggest they reach out to their Military and Family Support Center. After a service member seeks out additional assistance, continue to follow up on their progress and the resolution to barriers affecting their financial well-being.
So yes, this webinar is a part of our Food Security in Focus series. As I mentioned, this is actually our last webinar of the year around that. So if you have not visited our MFRA page on our Food Security in Focus or our Food Security in Focus series, we highly recommend you check those out as other materials that can also build your professional development around food security and food insecurity for our military families. For today's session, we are joined by presenter Carrie Hobbs. Carrie Gandy Hobbs serves as a Senior Public Service Associate and Extension 4-H Specialist for the University of Georgia Extension, Georgia 4-H. In this role, she creates volunteer leadership resources and professional development opportunities for more than 5,500 volunteers annually. Carrie was named the 2021 recipient of the Distinguished UGA Public Service and Outreach Walter B. Hill Award. She holds a Master of Public Administration from Valdosta State University and a Bachelor of Education from the University of Georgia. She has also served on the National Extension Conference on Volunteerism Planning Committee for 4 years and as the principal investigator of the AmeriCorps Vista Project for Georgia 4-H for the past 6 years, where she created the 4-H Summer Health Squad to address food insecurity. Carrie is currently serving as on the leadership team of the NSF Regional Innovation Engines Program for Next Generation Agriculture. Before I hand things over to Carrie, a quick few last notes. A recording of this presentation will be available on the webinar event page for on-demand viewing within 24 to 48 hours of today's webinar. You can download a PDF handout of today's presentation on the event page, as well as all of the webinar resources that we will be mentioning today and Carrie will be speaking about. And again, I will be covering continuing education information at the conclusion of the webinar. So please stay tuned until the very end for that information if you are hoping to obtain CE credits. And with that, I'm very happy to turn things over to Carrie to begin this presentation.
Thank you so much, Kaylin, and what a pleasure to be with you all today and share a little bit more about our 4-H Summer Health Squad. I'm going to begin today just by talking a little bit about our agenda. I'm going to give you a background of UGA Extension and Extension overall and some Georgia 4-H basics, just to give you some context of where this partnership lives. We'll talk a little bit more about the 4-H military partnership and how that intersects with us, as well as the AmeriCorps partnership. We'll next get into a little bit of background and mission performance measures to a grant that we had with AmeriCorps Vista. We'll give you some resources, discuss some service examples so you can get some practical applications to how this project can be addressed in a variety of ways across various demographic and geographic locations. We'll talk about the impact of the project, and finally you'll gain some next steps potentially to implement a project such as this in your community. So our learning objectives for today, we have three. They'll be to describe the benefit and importance of addressing food security and health initiatives within communities. We'll talk about communities really in a broad sense as well, because I do understand that some of you might have a rather large community and that you're looking at perhaps the whole state and or even the nation. And that would be similar to my case, where I'm looking at communities throughout Georgia. We'll next take a look at identifying ways to incorporate healthy living and food security initiatives locally. And finally, we'll discuss the AmeriCorps Vista 4-H partnership and identify resources offered through the partnership that you could potentially have access to as well. So let's talk a little bit more about Extension and who we are. Hopefully at some point in time you've heard about Extension, and perhaps you were even a 4-H member at some point in your past. The Morrill Act of 1862 is what established our public land grant universities. And so the University of Georgia is one of those public land grant universities. This created a national system in that every state has that land grant university. In 1914, the Smith-Lever Act appropriated funding for outreach. This funding is allocated through the USDA, so the United States Department of Agriculture, to land grant institutions, but it is to be matched with local and state dollars. So as we look to the University of Georgia, we are cooperative, right? So we have this national funding through the Smith-Lever Act, but we are positioned in the University of Georgia in our state. And then each of our counties would then have additional dollars that are put into this partnership. Those dollars could be funded through the local school system. Many times it is through local county governments. But I would encourage you, if you are not currently aware of programs that are offered in your communities, to reach out and see how perhaps you could connect with them to better understand what is offered. What we do here in Georgia, we translate the science of everyday living for farmers, families, and communities to foster a healthy, prosperous Georgia. You would see similar lines such as that throughout the country, really, as you connect with land grant institutions to work with their extension service. In Georgia, we have 129 counties, and that includes offering programs in 159 counties. These counties are split into 4 districts, which we would consider quadrics. You could think of Georgia and put a line down and across, and that would establish our 4 districts, which each of those encompass approximately 40 counties. One district has 39 and another has 41. So there is a little bit of variation. We're split into 3 different program areas that all work very cooperatively together to address the holistic need for these communities. So these 3 program areas would include agricultural and natural resources. You might see this abbreviated as ANR. Family and Consumer Sciences, you can see that as FACS, and finally 4-H and Youth, where I'm housed in the University of Georgia. At the local level, you may see an extension agent or you may see 3 different extension agents who each specialize in one of these program areas. So as you look to a county, really this would be across the nation, you could see support in all 3 of these program areas. Some states could have additional program areas as well. So let's talk just a little bit more about UGA Extension. We're, as mentioned, cooperative extension, where we're delivering the latest research to local communities. Back when we were established in 1914, this would have been research that was delivered to farmers and businesses, as well as families. Today, however, more than 100 years later, our topics are even more relevant than ever. We're addressing not only topics such as field crops, but also landscape, finance, youth development, and the list really goes on and on. Extension continues to reach communities and families across the nation. Georgia 4-H is where the Youth Development Initiative is housed, and 4-H overall is the nation's largest youth development organization, empowering young people across the nation. In Georgia, primarily, we're reaching kids starting in the 4th grade, and hopefully they would continue with us through their graduation of high school. We're partnered in Georgia with school systems. However, young people are joining 4-H through community clubs as well. In Georgia, last year, we had 103,368 youth enrolled in 4-H through our public and private schools, where 4-H agents and educators were going directly into the schools to offer this research-based information. 27,492 young people last year engaged with us through enrichment programs. So this could look like an after-school special activity that was offered perhaps at the school or at a community location. We had 6,612 youth who were reached through our what we would call our 1890 school, which in Georgia is Fort Valley State University. That university was established with the Second Morrill Act of 1890. Additionally, we had 2,580 homeschool young people join us last year to interact and engage with our programs. So I share all this just to say that 4-H is an avenue where potentially you could partner to reach young people just right where they are. In the 2023 program year, we leveraged the support of lots of adult and teen leaders, reaching more than 173,000 youth. These teens and adults are working to produce these programs that are available then for young people across our state. 4-H, as mentioned, is a national program. It's a national positive youth development program where professionals strive to develop new knowledge, skills, and attitudes through real life experiences. They strengthen personal standards and citizenship ideals. They strengthen abilities to make intelligent decisions, solve problems, and manage their own resources. We're striving to improve leadership skills, communication, and expression. A model that we use for positive youth development is called the 4-H Thriving Model, which is a theory that focuses on first developing a really rich and quality developmental context. This context is going to include engagement, belonging, relationship, and sparks. And when I say sparks, what I mean there is finding that thing that really sparks the attention of that young person. Where is their interest? And then how can we build upon that to really move to long-term outcomes? Some of these long-term outcomes that we're focusing on are academic or vocational success. We're looking for enhanced civic engagement, ultimately employability and economic stability, as well as happiness and well-being. And this 4-H Thriving Model shows us how to get there through continuation in the 4-H program. In the chat box, you'll find a link where you can find your nearest 4-H office. And I hope that you will click on that link and give them a call if you are not already connected with them, just to understand a little bit more about their localized program. Their programs could be a little bit different than what is offered here in Georgia. However, there certainly would be some very consistent things, and those would be that 4-H is preparing youth for life, preparing them for whatever that future might be. Throughout our nation, we're focusing on 4 major pillars that include agriculture and STEM, agriculture being one, STEM and another, civic engagement being the second, which would also include leadership, and finally, healthy living, what we'll get to talking more about here shortly. We also work closely with 4-H military young people. Last year, military dependents in Georgia were served by Georgia 4-H, and we were able to reach 4,433 of these young people through our programs. This could include a summer camp. It could include club meetings with 4-H where they would receive a program on their installation. 4-H can provide predictable programming and a safe, nurturing environment for military youth to thrive across the nation. And one way that we're able to do that is through this 4-H military partnership. The partnership is providing military readiness through 4-H positive youth development for youth families, the young people themselves, as well as communities. This partnership is in collaboration with the military and land-grant university partners who are intentionally integrating research-based programs and resources that will specifically help these military-connected youth. So again, I encourage you to reach out to your local extension office, ask them if you have a 4-H military partner liaison, and if you might be able to connect with them to offer a more rich experience for the individuals that you're serving. In Georgia, we've had the opportunity for more than a decade, truly, to work with the AmeriCorps Vista project. The AmeriCorps Vista is a program that is offered through the Corporation for National and Community Service. And VISTA stands for Volunteer in Service to America. What this means to us is we have been able to apply through a federal grant to receive assistance for capacity building within our 4-H program. What the grant provided to us was actual individuals to come and serve, so bodies to help develop that structure for capacity. In the summer months, so in May, June, and July, we were able to get direct support through what would be called summer associates. Summer associates typically give 8 weeks dedicated to an initiative that is a national initiative. So in 2020, the national issue was food insecurity and health. And you're not going to believe this, but that initiative was established before the pandemic. As the pandemic came, as you I'm sure are aware, that issue became even more relevant. Through this partnership, our mechanism really was to deliver this direct support through our county delivery method, which for us would be that we're developing these resources on the state level, again, going back to the university to find that latest research-based information that can be shared back in our communities. We work on the state level to then make it a little bit more engaging, to develop some activities and resources that can then assist our local educators to deliver that content. Local community members were addressing food insecurity and health for the years of 2020 through 2023. And this was offered through daily support through our state network. So the state network included me as well as a couple of other individuals who would meet with this VISTA team at least bi-weekly, typically weekly, just to discuss best practices, to talk about any additional resources they may need, as well as just to offer support and give ideas. The members who were serving could tell what was working well in one county and could then perhaps work in another county with a little adaptation, perhaps. So now I have a little activity for you, and this is going to be an activity that we would have actually used through some of our VISTA project with our summer health squads, which is what we named our summer associate program, where we were reaching individuals to talk with them a little bit more about healthy habits and establishing food security. So our question for you, what I want you to do is grab a sheet of paper if you have one available, and or pick up your phone and find notes, or if you're at your computer, you could type this in a Word doc or any writing app that you may have. But I'd love for you to reflect just a moment to think about this question of what food means to you. So I'll give you just about 60 seconds to think. What does food mean to you? As you've thought of those thoughts about food, it could be a phrase, it could be a word, it could be a sentence, it could even be a paragraph. But feel free to type any of those into your chat pod if you want to share those with others. Okay, so I see satisfaction and family, fuel and energy, sustenance, necessity. Absolutely. Happiness. Awesome. Um, food is fuel for performance. That is my timer going off, telling me that I need to move to the next question. So I've got a second question for you. My second question, and feel free to keep typing in the chat pod number one if you're still working on what does food mean to you. But our second is, how does the food you eat impact your life? I'll give you another 60 seconds to think through that. How does the food you eat impact your life? Okay, I see some great responses here. It keeps us healthy. It impacts how we feel. A note about cultures, social gatherings, indigestion. It determines your overall health and lifespan. It keeps us healthy, growth, health, survival. Excellent. Okay, now a third question for you. What are your most significant memories of food? Your most significant memories of food. And it looks like K-Matt was already teeing us up for that one when it was noted that social gatherings could revolve around food and meals. Perhaps that's something that you're thinking about during this holiday season. Or it could be something else. What are your most significant memories of food? Give you just a few moments to type those in. I see lots of time with family, right? Celebrations, time with communities. Significant memories oftentimes might include a holiday and or a network of people, right? How do you think culture or where you live could influence the food a person likes to eat? Have you ever thought about that? I'd love to hear your thoughts to that in the chat box. How does culture or where you live influence the food you like to eat? Great point. And it influences taste preferences as added in the chat box. Have you ever thought about what is available to you? It could be then what you're most likely to eat. Kaylin's making that the note, I think, at the moment. What is available in my area seasonally influences her choices. Absolutely. Unfortunately, sometimes in some neighborhoods, those choices could be slim. So as you're working with communities, truly considering what is available to that group of individuals. Another question for you, just for thought, do you think people express food with love? And if so, what are some ways they do that? It seems that many of you already noted holiday gatherings, and that's really what I would think of as far as expressing love with food. I think of my grandmother, and love to me meant walking into her house and you could already smell the goodness cooking up, right? I see cooking for sick relatives. That's a great way to share generosity. Absolutely. Cooking for family and friends. What are some ways that not having access to the foods we love or need for proper nutrition can have an impact on us? So just think if that food was removed, how would that impact you? If you associate food with love, if I walked in my grandmother's house and suddenly I didn't smell that good food, what do you think that would mean to you? Yeah, see, it would make you feel that something was wrong. Absolutely. It could cause stress, anxiety. It could make you feel sad. You would feel strange. Yes. Um, this is also how our young people could feel, right? They could feel like something is wrong, right? They could feel like they're not loved if they're associating that love with food. I see hangry. That could certainly be the case in my home. And we see that in young people's behaviors as well. When young people are misbehaving, sometimes it could just simply be that they need the food to then enhance one of their basic needs of just being provided that subsistence. Let's talk a little bit about food security and what the need is. Based on the Feeding America 2021 statistics, there were 33,844,000 people, including more than 9 million children in the United States who are food insecure. So on a daily basis, they could be feeling that hangriness, that strange feeling, that sadness, simply because there is not close food access to them. While we're highlighting Georgia's impact and food insecurity, please note that this is a nationally recognized priority, which is also why that issue was given to us by our VISTA grant. It was a national issue, food security. Food insecurity was the issue. We're addressing it with food security. In Georgia, 10.7% of people would be considered food insecure, and 13.3% of those individuals are children in Georgia. Every community, small or big, has families who are struggling to put food on the table and have limited access to nutritious foods. For example, we took a look at Fulton County, where there are more than 98,000 families who were food insecure. Fulton County is in our metropolitan Atlanta area. It's home to Atlanta, College Park, Johns Creek, East Point, and other major cities in Georgia. Comparatively, though, we looked at Peach County, a rural county in South Georgia that had 3,310 food insecure families. While Peach County has fewer food insecure families, if we looked at the per capita, the local rural area, and the resources, there was still a great need. And as a matter of fact, that Peach County need per capita was even great to that metropolitan area. Fulton County's difficulties included limited access to food if a grocery store shuts down, higher prices for food, and transportation issues for low-income families, where the families in Peach County perhaps had some different, more poverty-restricted needs that related to food security. We took these two counties, for example, in the summer of 2023 to work with them in our summer health squad. It was really neat that in Fulton County, they were able to get funding through their local government for $14,000 for the summer to address food security, specifically in their county, where they were able to address that holistically for families who would come for that support. In Peach County, the local program did not receive such funding. However, that program really focused on building partnerships to still offer that same level of support. So we're going to talk a little bit about how different counties were able to get to really the same results in the end through our summer health squad. Regardless of the population size, there was a need to address food insecurity, and the summer health squad helped us get there. Before we go any further, though, I want you to look at what your local need is. So you can use this QR code through your phone to go to Feeding America. Through the Feeding America link, and that link is also provided in the chat pod for you as well, if that's easier for you to click. Through that link, you can go to your local county where you live, take a look at your surrounding counties as well, to look at what that food insecure number looks like to you. I'll give you just a few moments to take a look at that number. If you want to add it to the chat pod, feel free to. I'd love to hear if it sounds like a surprising or shocking number to you. So when you clicked on that QR code, hopefully it's actually going to give you Georgia by default, but you can click on whatever your state is just to find out a little bit more. Feel free to add anything that you find. Kaylin has noted 28% and that 71% of households are eligible for federal nutrition programs in my area. That's an excellent point. Feel free to keep looking through this site as we continue to talk more about the Summer Health Squad. But I know for me, whenever I first started looking at these numbers, while I could see some of the needs, it really was shocking even to see some of the differences perhaps from one county just over to the next county as well. Here comes the 4-H Vista Summer Health Squad. Our mission with this project is to support capacity building for community organizations. We also want to support food security by assisting with the dissemination of food locally. And finally, to serve youth through healthy living initiatives with goals of increased health knowledge as well as their intent to change behavior. So this was really a holistic approach where we wanted to teach them about health. We wanted to give them some ideas about food insecurity and also what food insecurity looks like, while also hopefully enhancing healthy behaviors for them as well, and helping them to understand a little bit more about nutritious foods. So the performance measures for this project included each of those local partners educating at least 50 young people during the summer through our Summer Health Squad resources. We charged each of those local vistas to collect 2,500 pounds of food and to increase youth health knowledge as well as motivate those changes to impact their behavior and or to improve health. Through the VISTA project, the Summer Health Squad launched. This include prepared lessons. We worked through our family and consumer sciences specialists as well as our 4-H healthy living specialist to prepare 6 lessons that were ready to go with activities that could be delivered as well as teaching topics, PowerPoint slides, and then how to perhaps extend the lesson. We provided that teaching support, as mentioned, working with them weekly, but at least bi-weekly or every other week, we were asking they make it a priority to join in that discussion with us, understanding that sometimes their programs might be taking place on during one of our weekly meetings. We also created social media graphics to help them share about their programming and also to share some healthy tips as well. And so all that came into a package to them. In the pandemic, of course, when we applied for this grant, we didn't know there was going to be a pandemic. So we had planned to actually give individuals a physical box, right, of these paper lessons. We were going to give them a thumb drive of the resources. to include those social media graphics. And we were also going to give them all of the supplies that they would need. So supplies were things like glow powder and food models. We wanted to give them markers and sticky notes, and everything that they would need to program would be inside that one box for them to be able to then share that resource. Well, when the pandemic came, that box had to be pivoted to be a virtual box. And so we started sending links out to these individuals, and then also ordered these supplies and had them directly mailed to those county offices. Sometimes we were using home addresses, in fact, because some county offices could have been closed during those times. With that being said, though, it did not delay their progress one bit. In the pandemic, we just shifted to do things virtually. But what was really great is once we got past all of those virtual needed times, we were able to then move this back to be a program that could be offered face-to-face with young people. What we saw there was really a great thing, and that was regardless of whether it was offered through a virtual Zoom session, kind of like now, or if we met with them face to face, we still were able to see some consistent impact with young people who were able to join and interact with us. Of course, we would prefer to meet with them face to face because that's where we can really get into rich conversations with them as well and develop some of those relationships that we talked about were so important for developing that context for that thriving young person. We looked to research-based tools, and so these tools came from resources at the University of Georgia as it related to hand washing as well as food and nutrition. We gained some resources from My Plate, which is all of this is available to you through the resources that we'll share at the end. MyPlate.gov talks or shares a lot about what a plate should look like and what the daily diet should look like. So we wanted young people to have an awareness of what should be on their plate. We looked to the Atlanta Food Bank, where they have a fantastic bank of resources, as well as this Hunger 101 curriculum that has a variety of lessons. We were able to pull those and customize those for the needs of our health squad. That link has been provided to you in the chat pod by Jason, and I hope that you will click on that and perhaps look at how you could use some of those curricula resources to support your programs. We just handpicked a few that were most relevant to our audience for this particular time, and what our full bank looked like for our summer health squad was we would start with a wash your paws lesson. Of course, we have Uga, the bulldog here at UGA. So that could be something very different for you. You might not want to use wash your paws, but you could use wash your hands or wash your whatever it may be. That is your mascot if you're connecting with your land grant institution. With wash your paws, we could use Arch the dog to then talk about proper hand washing. We had a lesson called My Delicious Nutritious Plate, where again we pointed to those resources at myplate.gov to share with them what a delicious plate could look like. We got into mindfulness and healthy eating and the feelings we feel whenever we're eating, and also dabbled a little bit into responsibility when you're eating as well. So being mindful of what's on your plate and even what's on your neighbor's plate as well. There is a huge element of generosity throughout these lessons where we were thinking about other community members and those around us and how we could make our communities better. we talked about what is food security, making really sure that this particular lesson did not fall at the end of the session, right? So in the what is food security, we exposed young people to better understand what food security is, where they could put a name on it, a label on it, right? We talked about how close their grocery stores were, where they may have access to groceries. Finally, in that last lesson, that food access, so the food insecurity and food access lessons really went hand in hand, but the food access and health really was where we started making a difference in that food security lesson, right? So more than just talking about what is food security, what can we do to increase food access? What can we do to gain healthier plates? And this could look like a variety of things, but what was really great is we could get the young person's voice along the way, where they may know that there are farms in the community that perhaps could help with that, or they may know about local food banks, or they may be able to tell you about how far the grocery store was, or that the local grocery store had to close during the pandemic, or the local grocery store is closed forever, which is certainly a case that we heard. There were interactive activities along the way. This was one of the resources that we used. We would just have 2 die, roll the dice, and go around the room, and a young person with the first a young person would say the name of a food that belonged in each food group. So if they rolled a 2, for instance, they would need to name a vegetable. And the die number 2 would tell them the physical activity they needed to do. So maybe they had a 2 and a 5. They would need to name a vegetable. So maybe they said asparagus, and then they would need to do 10 kicks. It wasn't just them, though. They would say the vegetable, and then the 10 kicks would come from the full group. So this was a way that we could then talk about a balance of food and also exercise as well. That was one thing we did to keep them moving, but we also asked them to get creative with an activity that I'm going to ask you to take part in. As they talked about food banks, and also as they might have raised food, they were collecting food to then share back with their communities. Some of them were even able to visit the food bank to take a look at the foods that were there and available. We then talked about how you could get creative with recipes. So if what was in your food box, or if the last 3 ingredients in your pantry are black beans, tomatoes, and corn, what's something you could do with that? I would love to hear from you. What is something you would do with black beans, tomatoes, and corn? I see some great ideas coming up in the chat box. Black bean salsa, soup, a dip, black bean burger, salad, corn salsa, a black bean corn salad. So as you see, there are actually a lot of different twists you could put on these 3 ingredients. And we wanted the kids to start thinking about that. How could they help with adding that creativity whenever there were maybe only, these 3 or 4 things, or maybe it's only 2 in their pantry. But also we wanted to know where they could go to find more, right? So in the case of if they're living on installation, go into that commissary. Hopefully that's not too far for them. But if they're not living on an installation, it could be that their grocery store is a long ways away. But knowing where that closest place is to gain some of those resources is helpful. we wanted to put them in contact with what those local places were that would freely disseminate those foods as well. So where are those local food banks, or where could they go then for help? And if they got just these three things, if they could only get three things, being creative with what then they could do with those three things. You all have lots of great ideas in the chat pod. Thank you all for sharing. You're making me hungry. So another part of this Summer Health Squad was a service project. We did a high five for ending hunger, but certainly the young people were very creative in coming up with lots of ways that they could collect foods and do a service project, which then gave that generosity element that we were looking for as one of the foundational pieces in the class. So one thing that we did, this high five for ending hunger, is one of our typical Georgia 4-H activities that we would offer is called State 4-H Council. And during that council event, it happens in the middle of the summer. Young people from every county in Georgia are typically coming to one location to vote on their next state board is what happens. But we ask them while they're coming, how about bring us 5 canned goods with you. Look in your cabinet if you have resources, or if you have ingredients that you're not planning on using, go ahead and bring those to us. And or if you don't have access to that, that's completely fine. You might even ask your community if they'll help you in raising those 5 things that you could bring to the council. So our Vistas came up with this snazzy term of high five for ending hunger. They asked for 5 different ingredients to be brought to then be donated then back to food banks across the state. Some just said, hey, I want to give you the $5. And so that's great too, because then we were able to turn those into donations back to those local food banks. On the right, you see Christmas in July is what happened here. We had one of our Vistas dress up like Santa Claus and just ask the community to bring in donations for Santa Claus to then be able to just distribute those goodies along the way. And young people were a part of promoting this activity. They would then announce it and share with their networks. But for once, they really had more of an understanding of what the need was, and felt that they had that desire to then want to contribute back. So this is what was raised in Emmanuel County by Christmas in July to then be able to be donated back to the local food bank. Over the 4 years, we had squad leaders in a variety of counties. Fulton County received a summer health squad leader, so a VISTA summer associate for all 4 years of the project. Peach County received for 2 years, Jackson County 2 years, Houston County 1 year, Habersham County 1, Emmanuel County 1, and Seminole County 1 as well. The reason why some might have received more or some would have received less had to do with several different factors. One could be the community need. Also, it could be the community's ability to be a part of that cost share. As we mentioned previously, the cost share for summer vistas was $500 for them to get a local vista serving in their local community. But then also it had to do with people who could then supervise and really encourage these individuals along the way. So where would there be good support for these projects, as well as a need, of course, was always considered. So these were the communities where squad leaders have served in the past. I want to tell you a little bit about their successes. So Cameron served in 2020 down in rural Seminole County. if you know Seminole County, Georgia, you may not know Seminole County, Georgia. I'll tell you where it is. It is on the it is in the far southern west corner of Georgia, right beside Alabama and Florida. And she saw a need there to help young people gain food when the schools were shut down during the pandemic. And so one of the things that she did is she worked with her local school system to then be able to disseminate the foods to those local families. Whenever she took the foods to the families, she then promoted the summer health squad lessons so that they could be a part of that, which in this case was joining online, although she found some safe ways to do some things outside as well so that people could be safely in person. She was able to serve 947 pounds of food to over 1,200 youth in Seminole, Georgia during that summer. Through her efforts, she shared the importance of healthier habits and food insecurity and access to 60 4-Hers across Southwest Georgia. So she expanded to not only talk with those young people in her home county, but since she went virtual, she realized she could reach individuals all over Southwest Georgia who may be able to learn more through Zoom sessions. Another thing that she did is she created a hydration challenge where she would challenge 4-Hers to make sure that they were having enough to drink as well, so that they could have a healthy level of hydration. Molly was one of the 4 individuals who served in Fulton County. She really did some things that were innovative as well. She volunteered at an existing community garden to support the local resource. So certainly if there are community gardens available, you might look to teams of volunteers who could potentially, and I say that teams of volunteers very loosely, that could be young people, 4-H members as well, military youth, to serve in community gardens to then support those in need. She provided weekly deliveries of those fresh produce and educational kits to over 100 families during that summer in Fulton County. She provided online enrichment courses where she highlighted healthy habits with cooking, gardening skills, and mindful living videos. So while she was delivering the Summer Health Squad lessons that we provided, she then provided some additional resources as well to support those families. Chester served in Northeast Georgia, where he collaborated with the local food bank to donate 650 pounds of food to support individuals who were in need. He educated 63 children about healthy living and engaged them in 15 hours of that healthy living educational content. Chester is and was a school teacher, so he loved being in the classroom and teaching young people through hands-on experiential learning how they could make a difference with the foods that they have access to. So how could they be creative to spend some of those foods that they have to encourage a healthy option for them. He secured local produce and meat donations from Publix and Edwards Family Farm. And as you can see in the photo here, he's showing a young person how to safely cook an omelet in the kitchen so that they could then be able to do that at home if that is needed. Cameron, we had a few Camerons who served in our projects over the years, 3 as a matter of fact, but this Cameron, who served in Peach County, came for 2 different years. Her first year was in 2022. She came back in 2023 because she wanted to further make a difference in that in this project. She did a really neat thing in an attempt to encourage more youth in Peach County to take part in the program. She planned, promoted, and created the very first Summer Health Squad escape room. Here she utilized 6 lessons that were provided through the Summer Health Squad to create clues and puzzles that 4-Hers were asked to solve. Each clue puzzle related to the Summer Health Squad lessons that were provided by the state office. She just put this extra spin on it. The goal of the escape room was to save Arnie, the Peach County 4-H office's pet guinea pig. Clues asked the 4-Hers to complete a variety of tasks, such as using the glow bug lotion to wash their hands. This is where they would wash their hands. Or first they would put on the glow bug lotion, then wash their hands and come back and put their hands under a glow light to see how well they did with washing their hands. They could find the hidden foods in the room and place them in the proper food group, just so they could better understand where these foods fell in my plate, to just be a little bit more mindful of getting a balanced meal through their diet. They completed mindfulness eating chart with chocolate bars, brainstorming ways to fight hunger, and learn recipes from items commonly found in food banks. Now, as previously mentioned, she became pretty innovative with how she was able to meet her food challenge in Peach County, and began setting up boxes at throughout the community for donations, as well as working with our local Head Start to be able to gain those resources as well to then support the local food banks. This resulted in 32 students with increased health knowledge as they joined her various lessons. She was able to gain $335 in cash to then further support that project, and gain $3,639 in in-kind support donated back to then be able to further support food security in her local community. Noah served in Houston County in 2023. In Houston County, we have an Air Force base where he was able to work with closely with recruiting some military youth. He led week-long summer health squad camp. So he decided he wanted to do 5 straight days meeting with these young people to really dig into these topics, learning how they could address the topic in their community. He facilitated a field trip to the local food bank where the young people could not only see, but also assist the food bank. And also he hosted a kitchen where the young people could take a look at that as well as a part of the experience. He created donations for local businesses to promote the community partnership. And he is also known for walking around with water bottles, handing them out at events to make sure during those summer months, young people stayed hydrated along their way as well. Through his efforts, he was able to donate 250 pounds of food to local food banks in Warner Robins, which is again where that Air Force base is located. Christopher partnered with the UGA Family and Consumer Sciences Fulton Fresh Market. He received that $14,000 to support food and education distribution. Again, that came from the local county government, but he spent a lot of time in supporting how that food was then disseminated across the community in 2023. He was able to reach 12,000 individuals, and as he reached them, he was giving them the food donations while also promoting the Summer Health Squad activities and giving resources that were available for them to complete at home as well. He educated 32 campers on how to use summer health squad lessons with their family and with their friends. So it was more than just getting food in your hands, but also what can you do with it next? So hoping that those young people and families could look at that content away from the office if they weren't able to then commit to being a part of one of those full lessons. Okay, I want you to share your thoughts next. So in the chat pod, will you tell me what are some ways you can incorporate healthy living and food security initiatives in your local community? So I've given you some examples of what some of our Vista members have done in the past, from delivering programs to asking community members or asking for money to then be able to disseminate food. But what's you could do? What are some initiatives that you could adopt to address that food security need in your community? I'll give you just a couple of moments in hopes that you might add some things to the chat pod. Okay, so I see if you coming through, coordinate food pantry drive or ask for donations, finding the most localized resources and handing them out. Food tasting throughout the year, that's a great idea, so that young people can taste those things. I love that Mary in Fulton saw the need to talk about gardening, right? So she was able to work in that local garden while also teaching others about how to do some container gardening as well. So it could be that you teach young people how to plant their tomato plant, and perhaps find a donor to give some tomato seeds. Offer cooking classes that are open to the community, absolutely. And certainly working with your local extension office could be a great resource for offering those cooking classes. We have family and consumer science agents, as well as FNEP educators who could assist with those cooking classes, perhaps in that offering. Of course, 4-H youth development agents across the country could be happy to address that with you as well. All right, well, keep those ideas coming. I would love to hear what some of them are. I see post local food pantries and meal sites for the community to access. That's great. Keep them coming. I want to tell you a little bit about the impacts of our project. In that first year, impacts that we saw, and these impacts really continued throughout. Like a high 90% said because of the Summer Health Squad, they felt like they knew how and when to wash their hands. Well, during the pandemic, we found that especially important, right? It's also important now with sickness going around. But knowing that these young people were learning how to wash their hands and also understand the importance of it, our hope is that they were going home and talking with their full family about proper hand washing techniques. We also asked them about how they felt as it related to food security and hunger. So specifically, we asked, do you feel that you know more about how food security and hunger affect your community? And over 80% said that they did. Also, because of what you learned in Summer Health Squad, do you plan to use mindfulness to help you enjoy your food and make healthy decisions. And again, more than 80% there as well. Finally, because of the Summer Health Squad and your learnings, do you plan to use My Plate to help you make healthy eating choices? And still majority, almost 80% said that they did make that plan. We also asked questions as it related to additional plans. So I plan to eat the recommended amount of fruits and vegetables. I plan to drink less sugary drinks. I plan to drink the recommended amount of water. I plan to stay physically active. And I plan to prepare healthy food or snacks with my family. So those would all be topics that would be addressed in those Summer Health Squad lessons as we were looking to holistically increase healthiness as well as food access for these young people and hopefully their community, because our hope is while these young people are learning various things, they're sharing it with others. They're going home excited and want to tell about what they have learned through this interactive experience. Through these 4-year outputs, you'll see numbers from each year. I want to focus just on the total for you to see that at the moment. The number of pounds of food provided, more than 20,000 pounds to various communities across Georgia. Number of individuals that were served, 8,480. You see in 2020, we were able to reach a lot more, and that was simply because we were able to reach them through utilizing technology. So there truly was a benefit in utilizing technology in that year. But we did see that there was perhaps a little bit more richer experience with young people as we can meet them face to face. Number of organizations that receive capacity building services, 43 throughout the partnership, and the number of volunteers recruited or who managed for Summer Health Squad food support to continue in their communities, and that was 52. So one of the charges that we gave to the Vistas was to work within their community to establish relationships for individuals who might then continue that support once their VISTA term ended. Sometimes these VISTAs did not typically live in the community where they were serving. They only lived there during the 3 months where they were in service. And so we wanted to make sure that once they left, in some cases they could be returning back to a college elsewhere. We wanted to make sure that those young people were still having their needs met, where they still had a relationship with an individual where they could come back and talk about their food needs as well. That 4-year impact included 500 individuals with increased health knowledge and 330 individuals reporting changing behavior or intent to change. So let's talk a little bit about healthy living impact through 4-H. According to National 4-H, 42% of youth who participated in 4-H healthy living programs that completed evaluations post-event said they learned about healthy food choices in 4-H. In addition, half of all 4-Hers nationally shared that 4-H inspired them to become civically involved and volunteer. 4-H empowers young people not only to make healthy choices, but to help others, which is just one way we can help to tackle food insecurity and food education locally and nationwide. So I'll ask you, how can you partner locally with 4-H or other partners to educate community members? I hope that you'll consider that as we move forward. Certainly, I hope that you might look at Extension to be a friend in this effort. So if you wanted to carry out your own health squad, some things that you might consider, the The former slides shared on the summer associates shared our impact, and hopefully they've led to some inspiration in you wanting to maybe carry out your own program or to connect with another program that could just simply need a little bit more capacity building. You might also be able to connect an audience to the program so that it has a greater reach. As we move through the remaining slides, I hope that you'll consider your community, your organization, the needs that you have. We want you to support your next steps as it relates to addressing health and food security locally for you. We will address ideas and questions in a few moments, but first, let's consider following these next steps for carrying out your health squad. If volunteers are involved, I hope that you'll allow volunteers to try, create, fail, and try again. So this is learned through our experiences, and we just want to share some of these best practices that we've learned throughout this experience. Cameron, as mentioned, who was at Summer Vista for 2 years, learned a lot in the first year, but in that second year, she was ready to try new methods to reach additional organizations. She ended up not achieving her goal for food collection, but she increased her food collection dramatically in that second year. And her ideas, along with previous resources, supported our new vistas with tools, ideas, and partnerships. She was quick to want to help others along the way, and also was quick to want to go to the neighboring community, which is Houston community, to or Houston County, to then support those programs that were being developed there as well. We encourage you to host in-person training. For the first time in 2023, we did this, and we hosted the training at a common place within our state. We saw from the beginning, just right off the bat, that we had improved teamwork. There was improved belonging with these vistas. I could see that being the same with any volunteers who would join. And they had a better understanding of what was needed of the project. They also had a better understanding of how to deliver the programs, because we led the sessions, but then asked them to take it and share it back then with us to model it for others. If your program will run for multiple weeks, again, we would encourage that you to provide weekly support to members and your team. This will create connections across the state for that team, and they're likely then to share back resources and best practices that they've learned along the way. In 2023, we held these weekly check-ins. We held them actually every year, but we saw that in 2023, they were more likely to share. And again, we think that's attributed to that in-person orientation that we were able to host. It can be difficult for volunteers to have a safe, reliable, and easy way to communicate. However, we encourage you to use a system for that organization. You could look to things such as Microsoft Teams, Google, even using Zooms and Microsoft Office. The tools could be endless. You could have specialized apps available as well. We used Microsoft Teams in 2023 and found that it was really phenomenal for us because we could then use the computer tools for task management, for video calls, as well as chats. It helped us with file sharing across counties. It helped us with gathering reports and having consistent check-ins. And just having that common space to then chat for questions that they may have. Regardless of what is used, I encourage you just to find something so that those team members feel like they are connected. I would also say that you should encourage your team members to build resources to help you build that capacity through partnerships, We can do more when we're connecting with others, like teaching the lessons at different offices, perhaps, varying up the locations, using the food bank kitchen, and also working with local businesses to support community food access. I would encourage you to work with staff and volunteers to recruit volunteers to lead programs, to help you stay organized, help you add different partners. I would just encourage you to use their, leverage their resources to then better support the program. So some ideas for partners you might look to, again, extension, I hope you will. You could look to partner with local schools, with organizations. You might look to government organizations such as AmeriCorps Vista as well. A quick note about our military teams, only quick because I know we're getting towards the end. I hope that you'll consider military teams through programs focusing on food access, nutrition literacy, and healthy eating habits, because that can equip them with knowledge and help them improve healthiness and their well-being. I hope that you'll connect youth to 4-H healthy living programs to help them establish belonging with peers while gaining life skills, gaining resiliency. One thing is consistent, and that's that 4-H is offered throughout the nation, and that could be an important consistency for some of these military youth. I hope that you'll implement similar lessons in work with military teams and supporting families experiencing food insecurity to offer support. A few resources that will be available to you and places that you could go to find out more. We have the Extension Foundation, where you can see different service members. Again, 4-H is connected with every land-grant institution focusing on agriculture, STEM, healthy living, and civic engagement. You can find your local extension office. We have FNEP programming, AmeriCorps Vista, where you can establish a partnership, establish a grant like we had, and additional resources. So certainly I mentioned that Hunger 101 curricula. We talked a little bit about Feeding America statistics, so you can see the US and Georgia here, My Plate. We have some UGA extension resources that I hope that you'll visit. Nutrition and health, also related to money, family, and health, because certainly that can all be related. A food talk link, which will share recipes for common ingredients that could be found in various communities. And then, of course, giving a little bit more information on our USDA research center as well. All right, so now I'll open for questions and ideas, and also I will invite Kaylin to talk a little bit more about our continuing education. Please reach out to me if you do have any questions, and of course, I'm happy to be a resource for you for discovering how you might be able to address this topic with military youth.
Thank you, Carrie, and thank you for giving us that very comprehensive look into the work of that y'all are doing at UGA Extension 4-H. We so appreciate that. Yes, and thank you all for joining us today. If you are interested in receiving continuing education credits for today's session, the link to the evaluation is available on the event page. When you visit the page, you will see a purple button, much like the one on the screen in the right-hand corner right now. You will simply click that, and it will take you to both the evaluation and the post-test. If you have had that page pulled up since the beginning and we're accessing the PowerPoint handout, we definitely suggest that you refresh the page as that was added toward the end of the webinar, the continuing education link. For those wanting to obtain the CEs after the evaluation, you'll be directed to a list of opportunities offered from today's session. Continuing education credits are available from the accreditation sites noted on the screen, which include the University of Texas at Austin Steve Hicks School of Social Work, the Commission for Case Manager Certification, the National Council on Family Relations, the Patient Advocate Certification Board, the American Association for Family and Consumer Sciences, the Commission on Dietetic Registration, and the American Association for Family and Consumer Sciences for certified nutrition and wellness educators. We also have certificates of attendance for anyone else interested in documenting today's professional development programming. For some of those certificates do require the completion of a post test. Once the post test has been completed with a score of 80% or higher, certificates will be emailed to you within 24 to 48 hours of completing the process of the evaluation and post test. Some email providers do kick that to your spam folder, especially if you have not done this process with OneOp before. So please be sure to check your spam folder if you have not received that within the appropriate time. If you have still not received your certificate within a day or so of completing that, please email us at oneopfamilydevelopment@gmail.com, and we will be sure to assist you in receiving your certificate for your time. Again, we definitely invite you to check out our Food Security in Focus series that we have on our website that really has a lot of other great webinars and programming building on different local, federal, and state resources and programs that we have going on that can really strengthen your work as you work with military families or all families, especially those experiencing food insecurity. And yes, we invite you to check out our website at oneop.org. A lot of the resources that I mentioned today, you can check that out and view those on our website, visit and see upcoming and archived events, articles, blog posts, resources, and more. So we definitely invite you to check out there. If you have any questions at all, of course, from today's session or any of our other programming, please again email us, and that email is in the chat pod now. Thank you, Jason, at oneopfamilydevelopment@gmail.com, and myself or Jason will be happy to assist you in receiving your certificate. Thank you all, and thank you, Carrie, so much for your time today and for that presentation. We hope you all have a wonderful day, and thank you so much.